Hi there, it's Anne of Rosie Duck Designs here. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. In today's tutorial, I'm featuring one of the Sale-A-Bration rewards, and this time it's the Berry Blessings, and that is in fact a level 2 reward. So to qualify for that, you would need to place an order of £90, excluding postage and packing. Now, I know that is a lot of money, but I have to say from personal experience, it's not hard to actually spend that amount of money in a Stampin'Up catalogue. So certainly if your order is £90, it's well worth having a look at this particular reward. There's only 2 within the Sale-A-Bration rewards this year that require that level of spend, but I really like this one because there's a stamp set as well as some really pretty designer series paper. So that, as I say, is what I'm featuring. I have to say that the designer series papers that have been available during Sale-A-Bration have all been absolutely fabulous, and I've loved all of them. I love this because it's very summery, and we've actually got some sunshine today, so it's definitely making me think of spring and summer, and hopefully being able to get back outside and enjoy our surroundings. So I'm just going to share the papers with you. So on one side we've got some really nice fruit orientated designs, but then on the back there's some really nice background papers as well. Makes me think strawberries and cream, nice clotted cream. And blueberries, they're probably better for me than strawberries and clotted cream, but there you go. We have to have little pleasures in life, don't we? So it's probably not a paper, well, I suppose the fruit's alright. I was going to say it's probably not a paper if you're on a diet, but the fruit's absolutely fine. It's just the cream or the ice cream that you might want to put with it. Giving all my secrets away. This is actually the paper I'm featuring in the project today. I really love the colours of that. So I'm going to put that to one side. Lots of different colours within that set of papers. I'll read them out because there's too many for me to remember. So we've got Balmy Blue, Blackberry Bliss, Calypso Coral, Cherry Cobbler, Daffodil Delight, Flirty Flamingo, Garden Green, Granny Green Apple, Night of Navy, Pacific Point, Poppy Parade, Rich Razzleberry, Shaded Spruce and Whisper White. So something there for everybody's taste. And here's just a few cards that I've actually made. I'm filming this, I think it's the 21st, might be the 20th, no, I think it's the 20th actually. So we actually literally have only 8 days left of Sale-A-Bration. So I honestly don't think I'm going to be able to revisit this particular reward again in a tutorial. So I thought I'd just share some of the cards that I've made during the week with you. So here I've used the same piece of designer series paper. So this is the back of that one, I believe. Yeah. So I've got the back, and then I've just highlighted this little bit here in the front panel, and I've used one of the designs from one of the sentiments from the stamp set. I've got the same with the blueberries, and again that is the back paper to this design. So they really do complement each other really well. So we're going to make a version of this card today. So again, this is our background paper, and this is the design that's actually on the front of that. I've used Thank You, doesn't come from that stamp set, it actually comes from the Massive Thanks stamp set. And I've used literally just one piece of paper there. So I've used that design. I haven't used the background to that one is that particular design, but I've not used that. I've just put that onto a piece of, I think that's Pacific Point So I've got that as my layer card, then I've got the design series paper as my second layer, and I've actually done some stamping, so I've used the stamp set as well, just to be a little bit different. And then I've done some stamping inside as well. In all these I've actually just used a strip of the designer series paper just to give my card a bit of design, and in each of these particular cards I've actually used a piece of the designer series paper inside the card as my background layer. So again, very, very easy, simple to put together, nothing at all complicated. I've used various dies here. I've used these from the Hippo dies. I've got the layering ovals I've used on here, and the stitched framelit dies is the square that I've used for this card. And again, I've got my layering ovals on that one. I'm going to look at making a card today. I'm going to use a die cut to make the actual card, but I will share with you how you can make a similar card without using any die cuts whatsoever, but rather just using a couple of punches. So I will feature those on my blog, those extra cards on my blog as well, just so that you can have perhaps a closer look at them. So let's put the stamp set to one side. I will return to that later because we're not really going to do any stamping as such, but I will come back and share with you at the end the various stamps that stamp set will produce. So let's get on with our card. So as usual, I've got my normal base card size of 6x8 scored at 4 on the long side, and I'm going to be making this card in a portrait style, and the equivalent metric for that is 15x20 scored at 10 on the long side. And then I've got 2 pieces of rich Razzleberry cardstock, both cut at 5 3/4 by 3 3/4 or 9.5 centimetres by 14.5 centimetres. So unlike the cards that I've just shared with you, I'm actually using a card as my background layer on the inside of my card, just to be a bit different. I've then got a piece of my designer series paper, and I've got that cut at 3.5 by 5.5 or 9 by 14 centimetres. Reaching behind me, if I just grab the card that we're going to make a similar version of, that might be helpful. So let's start by sticking the easy bits in, the bits that I know where they go. I can actually get the top off my glue. That's always a good start. So if you haven't joined me recently, but have seen my videos in the past, you'll know that I was totally obsessed with our snail adhesive, but I'm getting on really well with our new Stamp and Seal. So all the trauma of it retiring and being replaced was all unfounded. So I'm just centralising that on the inside of my card, and then on the front I'm going to be putting the other layer of the rich Razzleberry card. I've got to try and remember to do this in the right order, which for a Saturday afternoon is probably asking a bit too much for my little brain, but there you go. If you follow me on a regular basis, you'll be fully aware that things never quite go to plan, but that's kind of the way life is, isn't it? Let's be honest. I've also got, as my inside, just my inside where I'm going to write my message, I've got a piece of white card which is cut at 3.5 by 5.5 or 9 by 14. And I'm literally just going to pretty that up with a strip of designer series paper. I think I'm going to concentrate on the front of it first. So on this card I've used that as my background, and then I've cut my I've die cut an oval out of there, and then I've stuck effectively my design side of my paper has gone underneath so that this bit shows through. You can imagine that's under there, but it's showing through at the top. I'm going to flip it this time, and I'm actually going to use our pretty design as my main sheet, and I'm going to flip that and use just that design on the top of the card. However, before we do that, it requires just a little bit of imagination, because let's assume, in fact I think I can stick this on. Let's go for that. So I'm going to use, that's right, see, I told you I'd get confused. So I'm using the pretty berry side. Now they do fall downwards the way I've cut the paper, so I'm going to try and make sure that I've got that with the berries heading in the right direction. Always a good plan. So again, I'm centralising that on the front. Now, assuming I'm not using any die cuts, what I've done here is I've got a 3x3 piece of rich Razzleberry even cardstock, and I've got a 2.5 by 2.5 square of the designer series paper, and all I've done is I've rounded off corners using the detailed trio punch. So by using that element of the punch, I've just rounded the corners off just to make it a little bit prettier than a square, and that's all I've done. And then what I would do with this, no, I shouldn't have done that because actually I would be using it on the flip side, so I'd be using this design because I'm featuring the berries. So effectively I'd be making the card like this, with the berries being the focal image on the front. So let's stick with the card I've already made. I do apologise. So I would be putting this side of the design series paper, then I've got my square of rich Razzleberry, my square of my designer series paper. Ignoring the thank you, I've just stamped on a piece of white card this sentiment, wishing you the very best, and that is in rich Razzleberry. I've just trimmed that down to just so that there's just a little bit of card around the sentiment, and then I've got a slightly larger piece of the rich Razzleberry cardstock, and I've just cut the end of that using this punch here, which the name of it escapes me for the moment, but I will have all the details of the products that I've used or potential products that you could use on the front of the video, and I'll also be writing a blog post about it, so there'll be all the other different information on there as well. So give that a look. The link to my blog is on the front of the video, or it will be, and there's also now a little button at the top of my YouTube channel that you can just click on there to be taken to my blog. So what I would do with that, I would put some stamping dimensionals on that, and I would just stick that on the front of my card. I would put some Wink Of Stella just to highlight the berries, and then I've got a very similar card to the one underneath. Here I've added some sequins from the Artistry Bloom suite, so there's some sequins from there. So it's just an idea of how you could make a very similar card if you haven't got die cuts, but you've got some punches. So let's return to the card that I'm actually going to make. So as I say, I've flipped this card. I'm using the berries this time, and I'm using this as the piece that's going to go on the front. And what I've done is I've cut that out using one of the Hippo and Friends dies. I have to say I have used this stamp set and die set to cut out the hippo and the sheep and the horse, etc. But I've got to say that, and I've used the balloon as well, but this particular die set is well worth buying just for the these dies because these are fabulous for sentiments. So I've cut, I can remember what I've done. I've cut a piece of rich Razzleberry cardstock out using the larger die, and I've cut a piece of Designer Series paper out again using that same die. And the idea is that I'm going to put that on top, so it's going to frame that. So let me just stick that down. Yes, this should be worth a laugh if nothing else. Possibly the sort of wet Tombow glue would be better, but we all know that I just get in a big mess with that. The worst I can do with this glue is sort of stick my fingers to it. So I'm going to try and line this up. Try and line it up. So you're trying to stick the same piece on top of the underneath piece would be a plan. Now if you find that you've got the odd little bit showing through, one, you could choose to ignore it. If it's really bad, you could just trim it. Now for what's involved, I'm really not going to worry. And that is effectively going to go in the middle of my card, and I'm going to attach that with some stamping dimensionals. If only I had thought to bring them in. Bear with me one moment. So I'm just literally playing my video back to make sure that it makes sense before I upload it, and I realised that I didn't actually explain where I got this piece from. So I've got a piece of rich Razzleberry cardstock, and I've taken the larger of the dies out of the Hippo and Friends die set. So I've got these 3 dies here. The larger one I've put down on top of my card, and then I've taken the medium one and I've put that in the centre. Now they're not exactly the same shape, but they do work together. So by putting that one in the middle, and then I run that through my Big Shot, it will cut the 2 pieces of card out, which will leave me with the centre bit that I can use on a different project, and it leaves me with this little frame basically that I've used on the front of my card. So I do apologise for that, but at least I spotted the deliberate mistake before I actually uploaded it. So I hope that makes sense, and we'll carry on with the rest of the video. It has to have something missing on one of my videos. I'm just checking that it's actually going round. Yes, it is. It's happened to me several times where I've finished the video having carried on quite happily chatting away to myself to find that it didn't film, which can be slightly frustrating when you've got a finished card and you've got to decide what to do, whether you start all over again or whether you try and talk your way through it. Hopefully that is working. So I've just put 4 on there. So with this one, I've got sort of my design happening up here and my sentiment down here. This, on this particular card, is going to be basically the focal point of my card, so it's going in the middle. So I'm just going to pop that down centrally as possible. And then on a piece of white card, I've used the little note stamp from the Butterfly Gala stamp set. That's stamped in rich Razzleberry, and I've cut another piece of rich Razzleberry cardstock. Again, I've die cut both of these using my ever faithful lowering ovals that probably my most used die set that I've got. It's been with me since the start. So I'm just going to stick now the two I've used, there's not an awful lot of difference between the sizes, so I'm just going to try and stick one end down and get that right before I make the final push down on it to make sure it's stuck, because I just want this little crinkle edge of rich raspberry showing round the outside of the white. Now I'm going to add some more stamping dimensionals. To that, and I'm just going to put that in the middle. Now I seem to have lost my tiny piece of designer series paper now, but never mind, such is life. I'm going to add a little bit of detail on here, and I'm going to, of course, I'm going to use Wink of Stella, has to be done, and this is a brand new one. So if you've not had one of these before, when it arrives it comes with this little collar around it, so you just need to unscrew the end, take the little collar off, and then screw it back on. There we go, there's my bit of paper. And I'm just squeezing it slightly just to get it to work. And I'm just going to add very lightly on all the berries that are showing. So I'm not going over this with masses of detail. I'm just going over very roughly over the berries. So there's no fantastic colouring going on here. And it's probably not going to show up, but it will when it catches the light. You'll see some nice sort of shimmery effects. Just holding it up to the light because as it's quite new, there is quite a lot on there. Just want to make sure that the areas I want covered, that I've covered. So I don't know if that's going to show up. I can see it, so I'm hoping the camera might be picking that up. So that is literally all I'm going to do. I'm going to just add 3 sequins onto the front of that, but let's just finish off the middle bit. So I'm not doing any stamping in there whatsoever. What I've got is a little bit of the designer series paper, and I've cut that at 1/2 inch by 4 inches. So bearing in mind this is 3.5, and the reason I've done that is so that I can make sure that this strip, if I cut this exactly at 3.5, there's a very good chance that it might not, there might be a tiny slither of white showing, because this is very slightly over 3.5. So by cutting it longer you can make sure that it fits exactly, and because I've done my berry design on the front here, and this is my the little part of the designer series paper that I'm featuring, I'm going to use that side inside the card. With this one, that was my design in the middle effectively, and I've picked out the berries on the inside. So it's just making a very similar card, but just making it different, because we don't want to spend all our time making the same card, do we? It's nice to mix it up a little bit. I could be coming to the end of this. Yes, I am. It's all happening. We've got new Wink of Stella. We've got new Stamp and Seal. Everything's falling apart. Okay. I've actually changed one of these before. This could be interesting. There we go. Hope. Yeah, there we are. Right, if you find that for any reason the sticky tape isn't running through, just gently touch the top of it with your finger and just run it through, and it will, you will find the next level of it. So I'm putting that right at the bottom and I'm overlapping it on both sides. And then turning it over, just trimming it at both ends. And then we're just going to put that in the inside of our card and it's ready to write the message on. And the fact that it is a sentiment of a little note, then it's going to work for lots of reasons that you might want to send a card. Now obviously the sentiments I've used, you can use whatever sentiment that is appropriate for the card that you're wanting to make. It's just to give ideas. So there we go, there's the middle finished. There is the front, and I'm just going to finish that off with 3 of the sequins from the Artistry Bloom sequins. So I'm going to go with that colour. Looks like I need some more of these. So we put one down here. One over here. There we go. Just another little bit of detail. And there we have it. There's our 2 different cards made using the same designer series paper, but just with some different layers and just a different way of putting it together. So that is effectively some ideas of how I've used the designer series paper. Before I go, before I outstay my welcome as I always do, I just wanted to run quickly through the stamp set because we clearly haven't done any stamping today. So it's what is known as the 2-step stamp set. So effectively you've got the leaf that you can stamp, and then you've got this leaf stamp that you can stamp on the top, and it fills in the detail of the leaf. Alternatively, you can just stamp this leaf and you can colour it in using some stamping blends. The same principle applies with this leaf. So that one I've stamped, so it's this leaf. That one I've coloured in with the Granny Green Apple stamping blends, and this one is using the secondary stamp that is in the stamp set. So you can use the 2-step stamp method on that. These are the blueberries, and I've stamped that in Pacific Point. So I've stamped, actually I've done it that way round. I've stamped the blueberries down the solid version, and then I've just gone in the top with this version on the top. So I've basically just eyeballed it, but it would work obviously using your Stamparatus. We've got a raspberry, which again I've done rich razzleberry here, and then I've stamped off the stamp. So I've put that down, and then I've used it again as a 2nd generation stamp. I've coloured that one in using my rich razzleberry light stamping blend, and that one I have, so that is the full version of the rich razzleberry, and then I've used this stamp but with the stamped off, so the 2nd generation stamping has gone in there to make that sort of less dark as the fruit. And with this one, this is a solid version of the rich razzleberry, both as the outside stamp with the detail, and then I've gone in with this stamp to fill in the middle of it. So effectively it looks slightly more like a blackberry, but you could use something like Blackberry Bliss to effectively make a blackberry. So you've got raspberries and blackberries going on. With this, although it's a blueberry stamp, it actually, if you just stamp the solid version, so this version, and stamp that in real red, it looks just like a cherry. So there's a lot of fruit in one stamp set. It also, I've lost my catalogue, there we go. It also will coordinate with the Sweet Strawberry bundle, which you'll find in the mini catalogue. So there's a whole other stamp set there with strawberries in it, other sentiments, and you've got a really nice strawberry builder punch. So again, there's a lot you can do if you combine this stamp set, the design series paper, with this bundle. So food for thought. So I hope you've enjoyed just exploring this particular Sale-A-Bration reward. I'm hoping to get this video up today, and in which case we have got just very slightly over a week now before Sale-A-Bration ends. It will end on the 28th of February. So if you have you like what you see as far as this stamp set is concerned and you fancy that, then you will need to place a qualifying order to be able to have that. But lots of other Sale-A-Bration rewards. You can download a Sale-A-Bration PDF from my blog, and I have already featured some of our Sale-A-Bration rewards on previous tutorials. I'll be back with one final tutorial based on our Sale-A-Bration, and it's going to be a design series paper again, because I have to say that, as I've said earlier, there's some fabulous papers in Sale-A-Bration this year. So I think that is it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, that would be absolutely fabulous. All the details of everything I've used will be on the front of the video. There will be a link to my shop if you wish to place an order. Obviously you can't order the Sale-A-Bration rewards, you have to earn them, but all the other little bits and pieces, the dies and the glue and the ink, although you haven't seen the ink pads, obviously the ink pads are there to be purchased if you wish. So as I say, thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back very soon, but until then, please take care, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.